Hello, I'm Fran Harrison and I'm the representative on the Children and Young People's Trust Board. I'm just going to let you know some of the highlights from the last meeting, which was on the 15th of February this year. The main item on the agenda was where next for children's services, and this is something that the Children's Trust Board has been grappling with for the last couple of meetings or so in the context of large cuts and consequent changes. So before we broke into workshops. We had some backdrop overview from Annie Hudson, the Director of Children and Young People Services, from Deborah Evans, who's the Chief Executive of the Bristol PCT and who's also chairs the Trust Board. So first of all, Annie Hudson reported that the Council are moving ahead to create a combined directorate for adult health and social care services and children and young people services, so bringing those two directorates together, and that will save some money, and there will also be some benefits from that in terms of the transition from Children and Young People Services to adult care, and it will also give the Council the opportunity to really focus on this think family concept, which is the way forward for looking at the range of social problems, vulnerable young people and adults, and treating it as a whole family approach, bringing partners together. So I think that that seems to be quite a positive mood and move forward, and could help the voluntary sector also think in a similar way. Deborah Evans then reported that in contrast to what's going on in the council where services are being brought together, the GPs and public health services are diverging, and we know that GPs are going to have their commissioning role in the future, but what's happening with public health is that that's moving to the local authority, and they will be commissioning the 0 to 5 age range work. The Bristol Partnership is looking at its role as well, and both child poverty and prospects for young people are priority issues for them. Another change, the Young People's Learning Agency will become the Education Learning Agency from the 1st of April. Now, again, before we went into our workshops, we had some information from Ray Jones, who's the chair of the Safeguarding Board, asking for data on the impact of the government spending reductions on the lives of vulnerable young people. Kate Oliver, who's the other representative, publicised the website www.voluntarysectorcuts.org.uk, which is where the voluntary sector can put on what the impacts they are all suffering from. But she also pointed out that many voluntary sector organisations were still waiting for funding information, so the site wasn't really well populated at the moment. And of course, she also pointed out that voluntary sector organisations would not necessarily want to publicise the fact that they were in difficult circumstances and may not continue, because at the same time everybody wants to compete and look strong for new contracts. And then we had an overview from Anne Goymer, who's the chair of the Prevention and Early Intervention Workstream Group, and she talked about the recently concluded review of early intervention services. She said that the review had highlighted a degree of duplication amongst the voluntary sector services in Bristol, and also some high management costs. But what she also commented on was that there is an opportunity that they've taken by decommissioning a number of services to rationalise what is offered in the way of early intervention. So the new early intervention grant that local authorities received represents a 19.7% reduction on the overall money that's coming in. So although some contracts have been rolled on, quite a few services have been decommissioned. The new model that Bristol is working on of 3 area hubs, the North Bristol, Central and East and South Bristol, and that will be moved forward for early intervention services and of course the new Youth Links work, which is youth services and information, advice and guidance, participation services and targeted support for young people. All of those are going to be now moved forward on the basis of 3 area hubs. Overall, this is all in the context of an £11 million cut to the budgets that the council has received. So it's all about trying to rationalise and focus on what's important. So this brings me on now to where the board split up into groups to look at the future work of the board. We've got an emerging children and young people's plan, which is still open for consultation and comment, but we used some of the themes in that to look at what was important. So the key points that came out of those workshop groups, I'll just run through some of those. Developing English as a second language solutions using both schools and communities, and of course this is in the context of a big increase in certain Eastern European communities and in Somali communities within Bristol over the last couple of years or so. So thinking about how we can develop more language services. Secondly, pooling budgets in the context of decreasing finance and increasing demand, and ensuring that the board meets the needs of the most vulnerable young people. Encouraging a collaborative culture across the city, including support and challenge by peers across institutions, and there we're thinking of schools who will no longer have such a centralised service for school improvement and welfare and so on, that they need to develop that support and challenge culture themselves. Reviewing the work stream groups. We've currently got 3 work stream groups, but there is a tendency for them to operate as silos. So looking at whether perhaps we should have more task and finish groups, and what would be best, given less money across the board. It's important to receive high quality data, and just thinking about what's happening across the city is that we're becoming more atomised, if you like, more split up, making sure that the Trust Board promotes a platform for citywide specialist services and knowledge and social mobility and employability. Harnessing leadership and nudging leadership, so making sure that we can have a context which has influence within it, and also leadership. Looking at where we can gather in evidence and work out how collaboration will make a difference. There's another thought that focusing on the phases of early years, primary, secondary and post-16 would be a useful focus. And then thinking back to this family approach, pooling resources to support families in tangible ways, and looking at models that have been pioneered elsewhere. And there's apparently some good work that's been done in Swindon where they've focused on the family, and we're using the adult and children's workforces on drug and alcohol, mental health, etc., and thinking about the workforce, increasing the number of direct workers that have skills to work with whole families, and this would also include co-locating professionals so that professionals can learn from each other and increase their skills. Providing multi-professional core competency training, and this would also help with this broader approach to help whole families. Sharing information about new initiatives, networking more, and using social media to do this. Thinking about making sure that we recruit and grow a local workforce rather than always looking externally when commissioning work, making sure that we have a really strong base here that we can always turn to, and given that commissioners are going to be having to use the normal procurement methods, larger tenders attracting bids from all sorts of places outside of Bristol, we want to make sure that the local workforce is always going to be the best option, and use the children's workforce to reshape the neighbourhood agenda to be more people focused and less on the physical environment. And then final point, that housing and transport department officers, both which are key areas that affect families, children, young people, they need to be active on the board too. So a lot of different things came through those workshops, and I've just given you basically a list there. The executive will be making some more sense of that and bringing that back to the meeting of the board again in May, and then it'll be much more about the children young people's plan and the plans for the board and taking that forward. Thank you.